Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lucille Miller Observatory. Let's see if where am I? There it is. Good evening, and welcome to the Lucille Miller Observatory at Maiden, North Carolina. My name is Jeff Wisnett, and I will be your tour guide for the celestial happenings here tonight. We do have some visitors here. We have about 26 people on the campus right now. The sky here at the observatory is partly cloudy. We are able to see the moon. However, we do have some problems with our camera right now. We're not going to be able to go outside and do anything. But what I will be doing is talking about the meteorites. And we'll be doing those here in a few minutes, so just stay put. Yeah. What you looking for? Scorpius? All right. Scorpio is the astronomers refer to it as Scorpius. I'll show you where it is right now. It'll be coming up in the southeast. This is part of it right here. These very bright stars. Let me up here a little bit. Very bright stars. If you look at it, it'll appear orange. Bob, I think those things are pretty much lined up. I just checked it. This thing will get up a little bit higher. Scorpius and Sagittarius coming up. Very, very low in the 70s. We're going to it doesn't get very high above the horizon. To be able to see the whole shape of it. Virgo is up right now. Virgo, yeah, Virgo is up there right now. It's up there. Two cells. This one right here will have a black, bluish white star. Like that. So you'll see this orange star overhead first. Then, find the Big Dipper, the heaven of the Big Dipper, which will be up here in the north. It's called the heaven band. See the spark of the heaven? You follow that down, and then follow it on here in the spot. So, Arctic Cruise and spin on the spot. The Big Dipper will be easier to see when it gets dark. You're not going to see much of anything here. I'll be talking about our meteorites in a little bit. I'll explain what's going on here. This is why you don't see any planets in the evening right now. They're all on that side of the sun. So we're looking out in the morning and all the planets. If they were on this side of the sun, they'd be in the evening, but everything's over here in the morning. Saturn will be right here in the eastern sky later in August. So by Labor Day, we should be able to see Saturn around here. Are they accurate? No? Well, that thing works well. I compared it to my notes, and it's dead on. Where do you get your data? Which website? All right. That's cool. Okay. I use this program called Wolfram Here the central point confused the plan. Using this chart right here, which is pretty much exactly what you got. And I'm glad you can't read it. This selects the planets. Jupiter, Jupiter is 355. Neptune is 350. So they line up pretty much the same out there. This is it matches up exactly with what you got. Well, that's what I'm looking for. Is heliocentric longitude, so I can use that on them. You want to cut a scale mark on it. So this one right here is West Virginia University used to put that out. They had a day for a whole year, like once a month. They stopped that. Well, this is real time. This is real time. I couldn't find. Yeah, come on in here. Let's get this direction here. Oh, I'll show you how to find it. Let's get this thing out of here. I don't have a crowd to do it. It looks like it's happening. Where do you want me to stick these? In the corner. Over here in the corner. I'm not going to set the camera up tonight. I'm having a problem with this thing. Yeah, I kind of about 28 people out there. Hello. Y'all seen anything out there? Really good. Come on in wherever you want to. You can close that door. You don't have to close it hard, just so it kind of is not open. That's good. Thank you. show you around on it. That's an old program, but it works. Are you looking for anything in particular? This is a program called Starry Night Pro. Do yourself a favor, kids. Don't get old. Age gracefully, but don't get old. What this is real time, but it's a simulation of the sky, but it's going to if you can't tell you if you got clouds. Then have clouds. This is what you do. The moon would barely be up. Did y'all see the moon outside?
Yeah, we did.
Pretty. But I'm gonna be able to see some other things coming up here east and south. Should be able to pick up tourists. It's an orange star. Spike wants to be a blue star. You can actually look at the sky. You can tell a very subtle difference in the color. Arcturus is orange and Spike is blue. Spike is a lot hotter than the sun, so it appears blue. Think about a flame. The hottest part of a flame is the blue part. Propane flame is blue. It's a lot hotter than a candle flame. And Arcturus is cooler than the sun, even though it's a lot bigger. It's cooler, so it's going to appear orange. And if you look at them through a telescope, the colors are a little bit more pronounced. Now this guy right down here, Aries, is really, really orange. It's what's called you've got this other star coming up right here, Antares. Now, Antares is really a pretty cool star. That thing, our sun is 865,000 miles across. Okay? Antares can vary between 600 million and 1 billion miles in diameter.
Wow.
That's a big ass star. It's also a supernova. However, it's so far away.
Yeah.
It'd be something pretty to see. But that thing's huge. And it's also a lot cooler than the sun, so it actually appears quite orange red. Red sea. We might be able to get this clustering here when it gets a little bit darker. What's called a globular cluster. It's like a big snowball. Yeah, these are what's called globular clusters. These are very old clusters of stars. And the stars are cool. A lot of them are red stars, so they have a lot of very, very old. Many of them are much older than the sun. The sun being about 5 billion years old. It'll live for another 5 billion years. These stars are very old. They'll live a long time. And then another thing out down here. Oh, the radio. If it gets dark enough late at night, we'll definitely try to pull this thing. It looks like a smoke ring.
Yeah.
You ever seen that before? What that is a star like the sun that is burned out. And the sun will not explode. It will not go off as a supernova. It'll just stay up and it'll turn into one of these guys here called planetary nebula, which has nothing to do with planets. But they're really pretty. They look like a little green smoke ring. We imaged that thing a couple of weeks ago. We were able to pick up a little bit of the There's another thing up here. These guys here. The conditions. This is what's called a double double. Each one of these stars Each one of these stars right here, you look at them, they'll split into lobes. One of them is kind of harder to see. But if the conditions are right, we got the right schedule to be able to see them split. Oh, this is up here. This is another pretty blue white star called Vigo. It's close. It's about, if you travel at the speed of light, it takes about 27 years to get there. We can't get there. We can't travel at the speed of light. This whole area right here, this is called the summer triangle of Vigo. Down here is the Medea, and then over here the Altair. Blue bright stars make a big time over here. They're right now, but hey, it's light. Yeah. It won't really be dark until well after 10. Right now, right at the latest sunsets of the year around 8:44. Mm-hmm. So stays bright a lot longer. So that's what that. You can set this thing for any time that you want. But go forward right here, a couple hours. Go forward. Then, there's some standing foot at midnight. This is why all the planets are visible in the morning sky, but they're not going to be Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, Mars, Uranus, and down here got Venus, and Mercury way in down there. All you planets are out there, including Pluto in the night sky. Pluto is you're not going to see it, you're not going to see Neptune, you're not going to see Uranus. I've seen them all. Well, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's on the line. Well, let me show you right here. Let's look over here. Bob was nice enough to set this up. If you come out here and stand underneath where the Earth is, this green dot right here is the Earth. Now, there's the sun. As you can see, all your planets are lined up on this half, more or less this half of the sky. That's your morning. So from Earth, you can see why they appear in a line. But as you see them lined up right here, they're not in a line at all. Yeah. They're scattered throughout the sky. But whenever we look at the sky, even though it's a three-dimensional space, we're only seeing two dimensions, left, right, up, and down. We can't tell the depth. That's what they found in ancient people for many, many years. But you can see it's nothing at all lined up. And we calculated, we sat down and we calculated. We figured that it would take over 27 billion years for all the planets to line up in a line, actually be lined up. Now, the thing is, whenever they started, they weren't in a line. They didn't all line up and then start like a race. They've been going like this. And so, statistically, it is possible. Practically, it's just not going to happen. And then, if you wanted a true line, you'd have to take care of the declination also, up and down. Everything's lined up on the plane, some of them are above the plane and below the plane. So even if you could get them in a straight line, it still wouldn't be a straight line. So that's why we don't like to talk about straight lines because everybody says they're lined up in a line. Well, they're lined up to the sun. They're always lined up to somewhere. But that's how it was. Bob set this up. This is accurate right here. You got Mercury out there, a little red dot, and then you got Venus, Earth, you got Mars, Jupiter, Saturn's over here, Pluto's back here, Neptune's over there, and Uranus is over there. We move them around as they go. The ones that move the most are Venus and Mercury. Mercury goes around. It'll make one loop around every 3 months. Does that make a little sense?
Yeah.
A little sense about why it does that? Now, where are you folks from? Around here in Maine? Shelby. Excellent. Well, thank you for making the trip up here tonight. We've had people from all over the place. We've got a couple of my members who live down that way. We used to do a big thing down there called the Gathering, Regional Gathering of Amateur Astronomers. It used to be down at Garden Web. And we moved it to Hickory, right? Called the Science Center. Fourth Saturday of January. So we'll be up there. So free all day long. Come in, hear some good talks, eat free food, buy door prize tickets. All that good stuff. Oh, okay, excellent. So you got some real astronomy.
Yeah.
Then one fellow out there, Joe Hefner, taught astronomy and physics at CVAC. He just retired this year. So we got some pretty serious people around here.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with Dan Caton up in Appalachia. They do a lot of stuff up there. We go around and play with their telescopes. We've got a couple of nice toys out there. We tell people, if you don't want to buy a telescope, come play with us. Yeah, you got to be careful. And by the way, help yourself to any of the magazines down there. I'm serious about that. Please, take what you want. I've got some. Did you find this on the internet? Our website is KentuckySky.org, and everything that we're doing is listed. We're always doing the first and the third Friday every month. Right?
So I know earlier you mentioned something about a sequel starting maybe another sequel.
No, it's a possibility. We have no idea when that may happen. Betelgeuse is another one that would go supernova. The thing is, these things are so far away. Um, they may have already gone supernova. We won't see them for another couple hundred years or so. Or we may see them in the next 5 minutes. But that's the beauty about space. Space is big. Space is empty like my head and curved like my stomach. Yeah, that's why I kind of try to tell people, I say, look, we don't have little green men trying to land here on Earth for the same reason we don't have us trying to land on Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
You can't get there from here. Hello. Seeing anything? Good. Yeah, there's a lot out there they can pick up in the scopes. Big Dipper points. Polaris is at the end of the little. Yeah, the North Star never moves. It's the only star in the sky that doesn't move over the course of the evening. It doesn't change position over the course of the year. And the reason is, as the Earth rotates, the North Pole, the pole of the Earth, points right at that star. So, what it is the Earth is rotating in this direction, and that makes the sky go this way. So, since Polaris is more or less above the North Pole, it does not appear to move. Now, about 27,000 years, there'll be a different story, but it's making It makes a big circle across that area.
So I was about to mention that Polaris was never like the true North Star. I know that changes.
That's exactly right. Now, I'll tell you, it's a measurable, observable difference. I started observing with a telescope about 40 years ago, and we had a little finder chart gizmo that you would put Polaris, you would know what day and time you were observing, and you would put Polaris not in the center of the crosshairs, but out here on a ring somewhere. And that would actually on it because Polaris isn't exactly at the north. Now, what's happened is over the last couple of years, Polaris is moving away from the true north. So you would have to make a little bit of an adjustment. And the charts that I was using to do that are now about 20 years out of date. So Polaris has moved that much. But visually, you're not going to be able to see the difference. But photographically, if you don't get it lined up right, your stars are straight, your images are straight. Which is one reason why I have no hair, because pull your hair out trying to get your telescope. We were going to string, but I'm having trouble. String, what I'll do is I'll turn that on whenever I'm talking about the meteorites in here. I'll get that going. Which may or may not have to be shorthand on that. Trying to get a couple other cameras in here to so we can do a couple other presentations. Just taking this time. I've got something in here, but it's just not working right. I've got a side camera that would work on a telescope. Problem is, it's just too crowded. Mine's already alcohol right there.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, check them out. There's actually that really cool stores. Yeah, yeah. I might sneak out there. always come to peace and destruction. And they don't very much how these stuff that they'll tell you don't use the 3X all and stuff like that. Good shows.
Yeah, that guy that was a teacher, the younger guy, they were showing us how to there's the guy with the pointy shorts and the plaid looking shirt. Here's the top
Oh,
of
the
the
yellow skin guy?
yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah, Joe. He showed her how to stand up and all that good stuff.
I used to do that. And I thought it was, I can't really function with that anymore. Hello, how are you? Just now getting here? Good, good. You can hop on out there. The stairs are outside there. There's like a restaurant back there if you want it. During our breaks. And I think all the junk food's already been eaten. Thank you so much. I know we're going to be talking about a couple minutes. We're going to talk about meteorites. There's some pretty cool meteorites there. Is this your first time down here? Excellent. I'm Jeff with Walter. Where are you guys from? Yeah. You live there where I came. Oh, you live here? Well, that's quite a difference. Yeah, this is, we've been down here since 76, so, we've been real pretty good. It's a decent level observatory. A lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot going on going up here. I know it's still growing. We'll get one step down and then you're on flat ground.
All right, thank you.
Get tired, you need a restroom and stuff. Thank you. Yeah. Never know. Good crowds on bad nights, bad crowds on good nights. Now we got a decent right over this.
Yeah, I didn't even know this place existed, but I was treating the house right down here when I was working this past week. I seen a sign on the door.
This one inside here. Until I start talking about meteorites, but yeah, a lot of people going out there, they have no idea. You don't actually have a scientist that can see what we're doing. Kind of stuff. That's what we know. We're here on the first and third Friday of the month, like the shop. Someone else will be ready from 9 until 11 to see what else is just not early. I'm trying to figure out what's the game that they really do around daylight savings time. Change a little bit of our hours, but not much. We're not. But, yeah, we've been down here. This place was built in 76. Future, we still know what it is. Future is. Yeah, that's right. We moved it around. One of the students ran into the middle of the water down the bridge. There's that telescope serious here. He said he knew it at school. The school that he grew up with. All the stuff that happened, 39 students. That's the only stuff that's nailed to do. So, it doesn't work. This kind of people, I think back in the 50s, we live out here in the corner, polishing the river. It's an excellent hunting system. And we're doing this. He's trying to get the boundary of the school system working a little on the boundaries. So it is another raised money. The home student body, this used to be a high school. The home student body in the mid-70s while raising money. Money raised over $25,000 back in the 70s. And students from Maine through before middle school graduated. If you ever wondered what made him such a football fan, somewhere around here, we've got a picture of a boy saying 14 inch still big along this wall right here by hand.
And it ain't no small feat.
Instruments contributes to it. All of us members of Colorado Astronomy
We got an old stuff that doesn't work with it. We'll do something with it. Yeah. We all do this every first and third Friday. First and third Fridays. So y'all have y'all ever like cancel or anything like that? The only time we would cancel is if we had some kind of major weather event, snow, or maybe flood or something. Even then, if we have a major weather event, sometimes we do that. We have a whole event in this place. We do have some water damage and all that. So even if it's bad weather, we try not to. People bring it up, come out here, we're going to try to make it. I see far too many other clubs out there. They talk about the weeks and weeks, and then 2 hours before it's supposed to start, they ain't never crossed up. I can't say that anymore. That ain't people that come in. When we're running, we used to work in everybody. Of course, other clubs around here, they don't have an observatory. We were really about the only free public observatory, then kind of unrestricted availability to the public around the state. We're not doing research like we do at Chapel Hill. There's a lot of private observatories. It's really incredible. We have some private Charlotte has a private observatory, which is fine. They get some girls still. They don't really do that. But we do this stuff here. We'll be doing some stuff at the Science Center. Up with Jim's Potatoes Creek, off the line. Yeah, sure, so you run. Yeah, we did.
Take them home, upload them, and then make a movie of them.
I'm gonna be spreading the media around talking to everybody down there.
Is that the telescope in there?
Yes, that's the one that's in the room.
That's big enough there.
Yeah, it's a 10-inch diameter mirror. And the key's about 8 feet long. So the key's about 12 inches wide. And the mounting is based on the same mounting as the power telescope in California. It's called a split ring power. And that thing is put together, that fellow right there, Bob Hunt, he's the only one that's up there right now. And he's an engineer for GE. So, it's been, it's amazing for us.
Now, can he, when y'all are trying to look at something with that one, I noticed some of these out here, you can just type in on a thing, or you have to like physically move
This
that.
one is completely manual. You just find it. It's a straight. It's not. We're not going to keep it where you put it. But it's not really complicated too. Just push the buttons in place.
Yeah, that's what I
Those are not easy screws to use. They're pain in the ass to set up. They're not for the beginners. They'll be big screws and stuff. This is not what you want. Get yourself a pair of binoculars, get you a simple scope of work, you wear around the sky, and have a class of what they look like, then you can look at the radar.
I like to see it. My great grandpa, he had a telescope when I was a kid, and it used that much. I see it.
Okay, now, read it
I'll
out.
be every up, and it's, I mean, it's about like, you know, like the one, the older man, the older man,
The one from,
yeah.
it's like the,
It's very similar to that, but I couldn't tell you, you know, any specs on that.
yeah, we see it. We've got one in there. See, it's over here, a few minutes ago. Old refractor from the 50s. Brand called Unitron, which is about as high end as you can get back in those days, commercial scale. And it makes excellent use of the pellets. We also have a policy that we never bring out more telescopes than we have people. One person cannot import two telescopes.
You know, my sister, she got one of them, small ones, terrestrial, I think, was a little smaller than the other one. But I remember, like $200. And he's pretty good right now.
Is that what I'm saying?
I was surprised how big it was real hard. And being that cheaper it is. I was looking at the optics on that and it has some nice crisp view. Celestial optics. You've got good optics. That is good all the way. Most of the states we have found the optics are quite acceptable. The weak spots or the mechanical tolerances in order to build facilities and cheap eyepieces. And if you've got cheap eyepieces, we don't do it. Yeah, he said that the 20 pounds, you know, that had already really used for hers. But yeah, that's I don't know, it's like sometimes it's probably with an eyepiece, the bigger the number, the longer the magnification. That's what you want to start with. Always start with the biggest number of the eyepiece and then work at the smallest one. And then increase it from there. It's math involved.
That's crazy. I can't believe driving up and down this road right here for I can tell you how long now.
Oh, there's people across the street that were arrested yesterday.
Well, what caught my eye was the dog, and I was like,
Yeah,
I
that's
was like, that was in the driving for you. I said,
exactly what it is.
in the door, and I was like,
They don't really make a whole lot of those. You can still find things like that. They go to different stores. What most observers do now is they build a shed in what the utility building, but they rig it up so that the roof can actually roll off and set cracks. So the beams down here that roll at the bottom has one off into his house. And the whole top just rolls up. That's how it is. It's great. It's pretty cool. Roll with that. It's packed to build, but then again, it's not going to cost you nearly as much as one of these. No, yeah, that one for that's a 15-foot bed. You try to buy one of those today, you pay
I'm not back in here.
$50,000. Yeah, we'll be there again.
Check on me.
Tell them to come over here and talk about the meteorites if you want to.
If nobody wants to come in, I'll show it to you anyway.
Yeah, I'll look at it probably after because I was here about anyway.
Well, I'll show you this one to begin with right here. That's moon rock. That's a meteorite from the moon.
Yeah, that's a piece of the moon.
That's a piece of the moon that came to Earth. We didn't have to go get it. It came to us.
It looks like gravel.
Yeah, but it's a moon rock.
Wouldn't it be white though, or is that just it changed colors from coming from here to there?
Nope, that's the natural color. You find stuff on the moon that's made like that. The brown color that you see on here is Earth moon. We're not going to try to clean it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's these are all certified. These have all been certified. We got them from reputable dealers, and we got a few things we don't know what they are, but we got a pretty good selection of stuff. We got this chili events from back in 2013. You remember the big one that blew up over Russia? I've got 3 pieces of that. This is the copialine, 1947, a very famous observed fall. People saw it falling in Siberia. This is Campo de Cielo out of Argentina, 5,000 years old.
Do they find some of this stuff when they're like digging for dinosaurs too?
You will find some of them, but most of the time, a lot of this stuff, quite a bit of these things come out in the Sahara Desert. Because you look at the desert or the South Pole, light colored sand, snow, dark colored stuff like that. So it sticks out. They find a bunch of stuff in the desert. And in Russia, they have a bunch of stuff too, simply because the place is so damn big.
Yeah.
That makes it huge. Give it a good pull. Come on in.
Okay. See, this stuff interesting because I used to like the study of rocks and stuff when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
So like it's kind of.
Well, this is there's a
It's
lot of
different.
geology. We have a geologist in the club. He's not anywhere close around here, but we've talked to him about some of this stuff. Everybody wants to come in and stream it. I want to stream it.
I was just about to come up here.
You see anything out there? Satellites?
Yeah. I was like,
Satellites are
Every first and third Friday.
Yeah.
They said that they do it unless something major happens, like it was like snow or a flood or something.
Yeah. We're not expecting any snow.
Yeah.
Flood, wait.
Flood, yeah, maybe. Let's start coming up here.
Yeah. People want to come up and get around the building, want to come out and explain. This explains why all the plants are on the building. More. It gives us a move. We get all the information we need from the internet. Try to simplify it.
Yeah, he said a piece of the moon. He said it was on a asteroid or something, didn't he? Yeah, right about here. Yeah.
This is a meteorite. It's a moon rock. You're holding a rock from the moon. We didn't have to go get it. It came to us. But it's a rock from the moon.
It's not like that's cool. Like, I mean,
Travel all these miles and everything. The only thing you don't want to do is you have two meteorites and you don't want to hit them together. They don't flow well with each other. Some of these are made out of iron.
oh my God, that's a lot heavier than I thought it would be.
Yep.
So this is pure iron.
Iron with a little bit of nickel, about 95% iron and the rest other stuff.
Where did this come from?
That one is Sikoti Alin that came out of Russia, Siberia in 1947.
Wow.
And they know the dates on some of the things based on the rock layers that were cut through and everything like the combo here from Argentina, 5,000 years old. This one back over here, this was a piece that made the big meteor crater in Arizona. It started out half the size of a football field, iron like that, and it made a hole a mile wide and 600 feet deep. I wouldn't want to be around anyway. I mean, I wouldn't want to be within 100 miles.
Kind of stuff to kill dinosaurs.
Yeah, the one that was about 6 miles across, and it created a catastrophe global-wide. It caused the air to heat up. What happened is it blew a bunch of the earth into the sky, and that earth was molten. Now, as it's coming down, it heated the earth. It basically turned the entire area into a tunnel. And I mean, it's hot. You could cook pizza in about 5 minutes. That's what killed the dinosaurs. Hello. I'll show you the meteorites in a minute. Did David announce that? David, announce the meteorite show. Please. Cut the lights on just activate Bob. Yeah, it's streaming. I just don't. Hello, we're back. We're gonna talk about our meteorites here tonight. We've got a pretty good crowd here tonight. We have over 30 people here, and you're not going to get a really detailed showing here of what these meteorites look like. But if you want to see the meteorites up close and you want to hold them, you got to come visit us down here. But we'll tell you a little bit about what we do. How many of you, this is your first time out here? Oh, good. You get to hear the live story. By the way, we are live streaming right now. This will be available on our YouTube channel. And after we're done here, you can go back to our YouTube channel at thetalksky.org, click on the YouTube button, and you'll be able to see what we're doing here. I may or may not edit it, so we'll see what's in the. Thank you all for coming out here tonight, and welcome to the Lucille Miller Observatory. My name is Jeff Westman. I am the communications guy for the Double Valley Astronomy Club, as well as the treasurer. I can't believe they let me handle the money. But
This is the Lucille Miller Observatory. And just briefly, the story of the observatory. It's named for Lucille Miller. That's her picture up there under the wall. Ms. Miller was a teacher here whenever this facility next door was made in high school. And she retired back in the 90s and passed away around 2001. Now, in the mid 1970s, one of her former students ran into this gentleman over the water fountain here. Sorry, kids, that's not Santa Claus. His name is Owen Rich, and he built the telescope right there that lives in the dome upstairs here. And he said that he would donate that scope to the school if they would build a proper place to house it. Now, out of all the scopes that you've seen here tonight, that is the only scope, the one that's upstairs there is the only scope that's nailed to the floor. Everything else we can move. The one upstairs is not good. Joe, thank you. I won't take you long. But anyway, Ms. Miller organized the student body. They raised $25,000. The students here at Maiden constructed this building, and Mr. Rich came and put the dome in up top here, and we've been running since about 1976. We are all members of the Catawba Valley Astronomy Club, which is a separate organization from the observatory. The observatory is owned by the Catawba County School System. The Astronomy Club is a separate nonprofit. We do all the work here. We are not paid or compensated by the school system. The school system pays the water bill and the light bill. They put a goat out here to mow the grass in the summertime, and they take care of us. We have a good arrangement with them. We don't beg for money from them, and they don't really tell us what to do. We're very, very blessed to have such a great relationship with them. But that's what we do. We are supported by donations, and most of the scopes that you saw out there tonight were donated either whole or in part. So we didn't have to throw a whole lot of money into scopes to fix them up. That's great. You got a scope that's burning a hole in your pocket, bring it down here. We'll put it to use. Your unused telescope mocks you from the closet. So you bring it down here. Now, what I want to show you here tonight, we have a selection of meteorites, basically space rocks. Now, how many of you have ever seen a shooting star? All right. It looks like a streak of light, goes very fast, and it disappears. Does not make any sound. If it makes any sound, that means your head's buzzing. So it will not make any sound. Now, that was caused by a rock as it hit the Earth's atmosphere, the air heating up around it and burning the rock up. How big do you think that rock was? Make some guesses. There are no wrong answers. How much? School bus size? God, I hope not. I'll show you what happens when a school bus hits. Most of what you saw, whenever you see a little meteor in the sky like that, it's about the size of this little tiny grain of sand. I'll pass this around. Grain of sand. Now, what I like to tell people to do, take your hands right here and move them really fast. Everybody do this right here. What do you feel? Heat. All right. Now, move your hands at 50,000 miles an hour until they vaporize. That's pretty much what's happening with that little grain of sand. It's coming in, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 50,000 miles an hour. Sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower, but still that fast. And when it hits the Earth's atmosphere, the very thin atmosphere, about 70 miles up, that atmosphere gets hot around it, and it causes the little rock to ionize and vaporize. Now, little rocks like that don't make it to ground. That's a little chip right there that was given to us off of a much larger rock. But that gives you an idea of the size of what you see. Of course, if you have a bigger rock coming in, you're going to get a brighter meteor. So you get something about the size of your hand, that's going to make the 6 o'clock news. And by the way, this little rock that you were holding right here, everybody get a chance to see it? This little tiny rock right here is actually a piece from Mars. So you've already held a Mars rock tonight. I'll show you a moon rock and a couple other things here in a few minutes. But anyway, you have these meteorites, and if they're big enough, pieces of them are going to make it to Earth. Now, when it's in the sky up there, that's a meteor. When it makes it to the ground, that's a meteorite. Okay? Now, all of these things came from something called asteroids. Uh, if you see a meteor shower like the Perseids in August or the Geminids in November, those are caused by dust trails left over by comets that have come by. We pass through that same part of the sky every year, and there's little dust grains into the Earth's atmosphere, and we get a nice meteor shower. The next one coming up will be the Perseids around the 12th of August. These things are not part of the meteor shower. These came in pretty much unexpectedly, and I'll pass them around. Now, let me give you a couple of rules about handling these things. It's okay to handle them. There's nothing sharp or anything on. If something is inside of a container, please do not try to open the container because we have a few pieces like this guy right here. This thing is so sharp, if you look at it, it will cut you. So that gives you an idea about that. You can pass them around. If you actually have two meteorites, if they're going in two different directions, you end up with two at a time. Do not let them hit each other. They don't play well together. They travel trillions of miles, but they don't play well together. So I'll show you what we got here. Now, there's three different kinds, and I'll make this brief so that you can get back out to this in the dirt. There's really three kinds of meteorites that we're dealing with here. There's meteorites that are made out of iron, and these are iron with a little bit of nickel in them. They're not magnetic on their own, but since they're made out of iron, a magnet will stick to them. Now this one right here is a piece called the Campo de Cielo out of Argentina. It's 5,000 years old, back when Bob was a little boy. So, and they know that based on the rocks where they found this thing. Now this rock is smooth, it's black, and it has little pits in it. And that was caused by a big rock. When it hit the Earth's atmosphere, it exploded and made smaller rocks. Happens all the time. As it was coming through, the air got so hot around it that it fire polished it. It's this beautiful, smooth, black thing. And if you notice, it looks like little tiny pits right here. If you can imagine a little microscopic tornado of fire trying to drill its way through you, less than a second. And so this one came into the sky and it was fire polished. Be about some of those things are quite heavy. Don't drop them on your foot. Somebody threw that thing and hit me in the foot with it, not this foot. But that one's made out of iron. Now I'm going to pass this one around right behind it. This is a very famous meteorite called the Sukhotia-Lin. This one fell in Russia back in 1947 around Siberia. Now it's a little bit different from the Campo de Cielo. First of all, it's brown because it's rusty. Iron rust. Also, it has jagged edges on it because this one did not get fire polished in the sky. It broke up when it hit the ground. That's why it's got these jagged edges. It's not sharp. And it doesn't have any of the little things where it tried to bore its way through. So you can see that right there. That meteorite was an observed fall. People saw it fall. Nobody had any cameras because it was in the middle of nowhere in Siberia. But there's a very famous postage stamp that depicts that particular fall. Now, those particular meteorites did not make it to the West in any vast numbers until the Soviet Union collapsed around 1990. Then all of a sudden, those things were dirt cheap in the West. The story that we have, and I need to verify this, I hate to put unverified information out there, but Vladimir Putin has declared that to be Russian state property. And if we have them, we're supposed to send them back. So we like to tell people that Sukhotia-Lin is Vladimir Putin's meteorite, and he wants it back. He ain't getting it back. We paid about $275 for it. A couple years ago, the same guy that sold it to us wanted to buy it back for $3,500. So he ain't getting it back either. Let's see. All right. Now, those two are made out of iron. I want to show you something. The next one's right here, they're made out of stone. Now, if you see a meteorite with a flat surface, that's one that we have taken and sliced it in half and polished it so that we can see what's going on the inside. This one right here, if you can imagine, it's getting so hot on the outside that the surface boils, and then it freezes back in this beautiful crust right here. The white material is caliche, which is a desert rock. This was found in the Sahara Desert. Um, it's what they call an NWA, Northwest Africa. And it's just a beautiful piece. The cracks on here tell all sorts of stories about what happened while it was in space, what happened when it hit the atmosphere, and what happened when it hit the ground. Whenever you're finished with any of those meteorites, work their way back up.
One right behind.
One right behind it. Good, good. That one's made out of stone. Here's another one that's made out of stone. This is a really pretty one right here. It's smooth. This is called the Galgini. It fell in 1960 in Upper Volta in Africa. Now, I think it's Burkina Faso or something like that. But you can see it's smooth, and if we had a microscope working, we could look in here and you see little tiny glass globes about the color of a sun drop. So it's a stone meteorite, and even though it's stone, a magnet will stick to it. You can feel the magnet pulling on it right here. So even though it's rock, a magnet will attract it. Now those are stone. I'm going to pass around another stone right here. How many of you recall back in 2013 the Chelyabinsk meteorite hit over Russia, broke all the windows, everybody got it on their dash cams and all that? Here's a couple pieces of that. Now it started out as a rock about 65 feet in diameter, weighing about 10,000 tons. And thank goodness it was rock and not iron. It came in from behind the sun, so we didn't have telescopes looking for it. We don't point our telescopes at the sun. So we didn't see this thing when it came in, but when it came in at a very shallow angle, about 20-degree angle. And it hit in the middle of nowhere in Russia. It created a bright fireball, broke apart, and about 3 minutes after people saw the fireball and the smoke trail, this massive sonic boom hit. Now the sonic boom was so bad, it broke the windows, knocked people down, blew doors off, and all of that. About 1,000 people, I think, were injured, but not from getting hit by any of this, just from the sonic boom. And you can see a piece of this right here. Now, here's a little thing that's interesting about this. This is a slice. If you'll notice on the Chelyabinsk here, it's got a little bit of white stuff on the bottom of it. This is all the way through the rock. Now, this indicates, if I understand this right, that while this particular object was in space, it collided and fused with another rock. So whenever you see that discoloration, that is one possible explanation for that. So this indicates that whatever rock this was part of fused with another rock while it was in space. When these rocks collide in space, they don't just bounce around. They get bumped and they stick together. You can see the Chelyabinsk right here. Now, this next one right here, you've seen rocks and you've seen iron, but this one right here, you got a combination of both. If you have a spherical body, like an asteroid in space where all these things came from, most of the time, if there's any iron, it's going to be in the center, like the Earth's core, the iron-rich, the iron core of the Earth in the center, and the rocks are going to be on the outside. But in the middle, between the two, is an area where you have liquid metal and liquid rock together. And that's what we have here. This is called a palisade. This one also came from Russia. And if you look at it, you'll see the silver material is iron, and the dark material is olivine. I'm going to pass this one with a flashlight. You can see right through it. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous material. And that's another one of those things that's so sharp it'll cut you if you look at it. That's pretty neat, isn't it? With that right there. Now, oh, I do have a couple others right here. I'll go ahead and let you see this. I'll pass this around now. The rocks that I've showed you so far came from asteroids. Most of the asteroids, we don't know which asteroids they are. We do know the asteroid that provided the Chelyabinsk. It was an Earth-crossing asteroid, and it can dump more stuff on us. This piece right here is a known asteroid from the asteroid belt called Vesta. It's about the fourth largest asteroid out there. Now, give you an idea about how big an asteroid is compared to everything else. Here's our moon. An asteroid would be about the largest asteroid series would be about the size of a tennis ball. Okay? And Vesta would be about the size of a golf ball. So this gives you an idea of that. Now, how do we know that this thing came from the asteroid Vesta? All right. We sent a probe out there to the asteroid, and it took X-ray data and sent back and said Vesta is made of these particular chemicals in these particular quantities. Now, we saw a meteorite on Earth. When we tested it, it showed up with the same chemicals in the same quantities. When you see that with these rocks, you know where it came from. It didn't might have come from Vesta. It came from Vesta. And so far, we haven't found two rocks out there, two places that have exactly the same chemistry. Now, the reason I mention that is these next two pieces right here. These are rocks from the moon and from the planet Mars. Now, these are moon rocks. We can own them. You can own them. These are not the rocks that came back from the astronauts. We can't own them. These are meteorites. They came to Earth. We didn't have to go get them. Here's a little small one of Moon and Mars. This little presentation. Now, how do we know that they came from Moon and Mars? All right. Again, we know what the moon is made of because we compare it to the moon rocks that the astronauts did bring back. We know the chemistry. We know what Mars is made of because we've had probes up there for 40 years sending back data. We know what Mars is made of. The rocks that I'm passing around that we have from Moon and Mars started out as much larger pieces. They gave us a little smaller piece, but the chemistry matches. Now this one right here, this is a moon rock. This is also a real moon rock, a meteorite. You can hold it in your hand. It's not, I know you can hold it and say, yeah, I hold a moon rock. And you held a Mars rock. You held a couple of Mars rocks there. And let's see what else I got here. Vesta is out there. I tell you what, I'll stop at this point. And then if you want to come up here and examine these meteorites, you can. The only thing I ask is pay attention to where you pick it up and put it back down exactly in the same place. And we know exactly what meteorites we have and where they should be. So, if they turn up missing, we will lock the gate before you leave. Are there any other meteorites floating around? I know there's a bunch of them. How about somebody bring that somewhere? Again, don't let them hit each other. Thank you. I've been doing this so long, I remember what they are. Place for everything. And somewhere out there, we still have some tuning, we still have the moon. Chan, flashlight. I believe that's got it. Is there anything else out there? Oh, yeah, I had a moon rock. We thought we had lost this thing the other week. And needless to say, we never do this particular presentation outside. You can imagine what would happen if we brought this out there in the amphitheater. Any questions right now about any of this? The one question that I failed to answer, how did the moon rock, the Mars rock, and the Vesta rock get to Earth? Something hit these bodies in space. Something plowed into them and knocked rocks into space. Very easy to do. The gravity on Moon and Mars is a lot less than Earth, so these things got thrown into space. Now, they were attracted to the two biggest gravitational attractors in the solar system. Either they went to Jupiter or they headed toward the sun. And as they headed toward the sun, we got in the way, and then they may have orbited in some weird orbit for a couple of years until they finally came down. We found a lot of meteorites at the South Pole, and a lot of meteorites in the Sahara Desert. What color are those areas? They're white and tan. What color are the meteorites? Dark. Jump right out into it. If you think you have a meteorite, you probably don't. Uh, but bring it in, we'll look at it. We have been fooled ourselves. These are meteorites, but we did end up with a meteor rock. Now, this came in with a group of meteorites that, from a known source, but, and it would be a great meteorite. But we had it examined by Dr. Anthony Love at Appalachian, and he looked at it and he saw crystals in it. Meteorites do not have crystals. This is a nice heavy piece of iron-rich sandstone. Fooled us, so we call this a meteor rock. Questions? Anybody? If you want to come up and examine the meteorites and ask questions, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, you're welcome to go back out there and continue staring at the sky or whatever you wish to do. Just make yourself at home here. We're not, if we're here later than 11 o'clock, it's not going to hurt us. Oh, let me point out one other thing while we're here. I want to show you this in the sky. Did you know that there are no visible planets in the evening sky right now? Did you figure that out? They're all in the morning sky. This is the reason why right here. Now, first of all, if you will notice, they are not in a straight line, are they? No, you got them all over the place. The Moon, Venus, Mars, there's Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. They're not anywhere close to a straight line. They look like they're in a line because we're observing them from Earth, and we're not able to determine how far away they are. We just see a two-dimensional view. But this gives you an idea of why everything is in the morning sky. There's stars right here, it's silver. And here you have Mercury, the little red one, and then Venus is the white one, Mars is the other red one, Jupiter down, Neptune way in the back, Uranus over here, Saturn out there, and Pluto. And if you notice, they're all on this side of the sun, the line going through the Mercury and Venus, and over there to Uranus. That's kind of your line. This is the evening sky, where there used to be a morning sky. So that's why everything's in the morning. We won't have any planets in the evening sky until late August. Saturn will be back maybe in late August. Very fine. If you want to get up at around 1 o'clock, you know, you used to be able to see Saturn. I don't think I'll do that. I don't do that. Any other questions or anything? Well, just make yourself at home and thank you for coming. We are here on the first and third Friday every month, rain or shine. Usually we're not careful unless there's some kind of natural disaster, which we haven't had too many of. And we do things rain or shine. This is one of this nights we had a long time. I really appreciate everybody coming down. I know somebody's from Shirley, somebody's from somewhere else. We have people from all over this area. Carolina. We appreciate you coming out here fighting with our boys. Just make yourself known. Thank you. Yeah. Did you get a chance to see all the rocks? Now, that's the one from Vesta. Here's another piece of it right here. This is actually pretty cool. If you look inside there, gorgeous on the inside. That's what's inside one of these things. Beautiful. Okay, I see what you're talking about. That's a little what we call an inclusion. Um, it's something that's part of the asteroid, but the color comes from the fact that it has mud on it. We don't wash these things. So this had some mud on it, but all the other stuff, there might be a little piece of this white stuff right here, might be caliche, which is a desert rock. It forms after a very, very long time. I see that shape right here, but I'll have to look at that under the magnifying glass. I'm pretty sure that's included in the rock. Now, we haven't faked any of these things. real good. Now that's a piece of what we call Libyan desert glass from the Sahara Desert. Now this is glass. Whenever you have a meteorite or the airburst from a meteorite, as it hits the ground, it will melt the earth and blow it up into space. Now, sometimes it'll make things like what he's got right here, which is called a tektite. Sometimes it will make sand that is this color right here. This is called a moldavite. Comes from Eastern Europe. This is gemstones. Isn't that gorgeous? And then sometimes it makes this stuff. Now, the ancient people have known about this material for thousands of years. They found pieces of this stuff made into jewelry in King Tut's tomb. I don't know how old that piece is, but it's been on the desert a while because it's got smooth edges on it. Now, inside that material, there's a chemical called iridium. Iridium is very rare on Earth, but very common in space. So if you see something that's got a lot of iridium in it, that means it came from space or was caused by an event, something that came from space. There's more iridium in this rock right here, occurring naturally in this rock than there is throughout the Tulsa County. So, and it's completely harmless. Completely harmless. But that's a little piece of Mars. It's another little Martian piece. NASA sent us that for doing programs. This is what happens when lightning hits sand. This is called a pulverite. Looks like a canola. It looks very delicate, but it's pretty tough. We haven't broken it yet. But lightning hits the sand and it blows out the inside and creates that hard outside. Got a couple other slices. We take a metal meteorite and we slice it, we polish it and treat it with acid, and we get this pattern right here of lines, and that tells us that it came from space, and it tells us the nickel iron content and other things. All these iron meteorites will do that. Your stones, not so much. You can polish the stone and get some really good results out of it. This right here, this is pretty interesting. This is a heat shield from a rocket that went into space. Now we think that is from a mission called the Corona mission back in the 1960s. We sent rockets up that had cameras on them, and they took pictures over the Soviet Union. So we got a lot of pictures of clouds over Moscow. But it would spit out a canister of film. This is before digital. It would spit out a canister that had film in it. And since it was re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, it needed a heat shield. So it re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, and then it would pop a parachute. Before it could hit the ground, an Air Force plane would pick the canister up, because this is all classified data. Now, sometimes they missed, the heat shield fractured, and the people that knew what they were doing found pieces. We think that's what this is. Now, since this is from a spy satellite, this does not exist. Government will not talk to us about that, but we're pretty sure it's off the Corona. Now, that little piece that you've got right there has an interesting story to it. There's really nothing spectacular. It's the, is that the Corangus? No, that's the copper in the interior. That's what happens before these meteorites fractures and without getting air particles. This little tiny piece right here is interesting. This fell on the Lake Titicaca around Peru, and people started getting sick. And it turned out, they said, oh, the meteorite is poisonous. No, the blast churned up a whole bunch of arsenic in the water and made the people sick. Didn't it? So that's the only thing about that. That's more of a geological interest than anything else. We got a microscope around here somewhere that when we get going. These little things right here, these are little micrometeorites. Very common right here. If you look at these things under a microscope, they look like the Death Star from Star Wars. Little spheres with a divot in them. And got to get our microscopes back. We had to cannibalize everything in here last year, rebuild everything because we got drenched in the flood. And but we put a lot of our stuff in places we still have found. Those are magnets. You can try them on anything. They should stick to just about anything.
So what happens if they touch?
Well, what happens is you're liable to chip a piece off. Uh, it's like if you have two hammers, you don't want to hit the heads together because the only thing that can break a hammer is another hammer. And that's a good way to shatter a hammer and end up with a head full of iron. Same thing here. These things can break each other. A metal will break the stone. Uh, we don't. This one right here, this has already got a chip out of it right here. Some of them. We were giving away pieces of these things at door prizes. You had about 100 of them. We gave them all out. If you're interested in meteorites, um, the best place I would recommend is there's a gentleman that we deal with. His name is John Sinclair, and his company is Meteorites USA. Reputable dealer. That's where a large number of these meteorites come from. Sometimes he shows up at the gym and mineral shows. He didn't make the one that we have up here in March in Hickory this year. Hopefully he'll come back because I need to get some more rocks. And but these are some of these are incredibly affordable. You can get a little presentation kit like this for about $300. That's not bad. So you can own a moon rock and a Mars rock for $300. They're not that rare. Moon rocks, moon meteorites, and Mars meteorites are not rare on Earth. Now, the bigger they are, the more you're going to pay for them. And these right here are the ones, the pallasites, the ones that have the two different materials. That's the one that piece of that about the size of a piece of notebook paper will fetch about 40 grand. But, just so cool. But they're fun to look at. Depending on, I can talk an hour and a half. I've talked an hour and a half to college students. That's a little piece of Mars. That's the first Mars rock we had. And we usually, again, we'll put that under a microscope to see it.
Now, how common, something like that that we could see, right? That seems so big to us and so tiny. How common are like large ones?
They're out there because they all started out in large pieces. Now, if you go up to the mountains, there's a place called the CVAC Astronomical Research Institute, Perry, up near Rosman, out of Brevard. And they have a really good collection of meteorites, and they have a Mars rock that's about this size right here. It's, you can find them. They're not going to let you hold it. We got connection. But yeah, anything's out there. If you're crazy enough, I mean, this stuff right here, the moldavites, people make jewelry out of this stuff. Did you see that? Isn't that gorgeous? This light color right here. Now, if you looked at that under a microscope, it's like a fractal. It just keeps going and going and going. There's probably billions of little nooks and crannies in this thing. It's really incredible. That right there, the heat shield. You've heard of foam rubber? That's foam glass. It's basically molten glass that had a whole bunch of air blown into it and then shaped. And as it was coming back in, it would burn off. And that's how a heat shield works. A bladed heat shield. These are all part of the same thing. Now, since you've been so good here and haven't stolen anything, I'll let you hold a piece of this. Be very careful, don't squeeze it. That's a piece of that heat shield. That's what it looks like. It's not as bad as fiberglass, thank goodness. If that was fiberglass, I wouldn't. I've never had any problems with that. But, that's been in space. It might have actually gotten pictures of the Russians. Who knows? Here's this little piece right here. This is the Chelyabinsk, that fell in Russia, and it broke off in these pieces. Look at that beautiful crust on that side. And here you can see it split. If you look on the inside here, you might be able to see some. You can't see any silver things, but if you look at this one right here, you see the little tiny silver specks in it. That's iron. That's iron. So this thing's mainly stone, but it's got little pieces of iron in it. Now, another story I tell about this Chelyabinsk, 65 feet in diameter, 10,000 tons, made out of rock. Had it been made out of iron, the damage would have been huge. It would have been the energy coming off that thing would have done a lot more damage. Now, had the Chile Abyss meteorite under the same conditions, stone, 10,000 tons, shallow angle, had that happened over New York City, thousands and thousands of people would be killed because the sonic boom would have shattered windows all through the city, and they all come crashing down. Had it been made out of iron and come in at a straight down angle, like this guy right here, which started out half the size of a football field, that'd make you a hole in the desert, a mile wide and 600 feet. This is the one from the Arizona desert. You wouldn't want to be around any of those things. The one that I really liked back in 1992, and I saw this, so this beautiful fireball coming, going up here, and I said, oh, it landed in Taylorstown, 20 miles away. No, it went down below the horizon and landed in Peekskill, New York. And it hit a lady's car. And there's pieces of that out there for sale that you can find that still got the red paint on it. I would love to find a piece of that. But as my daddy used to say, that costs money. But most of them, you got to remember, whenever you see these things happen, they are miles and miles, maybe 70 miles up. And if you see something go down behind the horizon, it's probably not anywhere close to the ground. And by the time it does land, it's not going to be glowing. It's not going to be fiery. It's not going to be hot. It's going to be on the ground. A bunch of rocks coming in. You probably won't hear a sonic boom because it's slowed down enough. If you see it, you're not going to hear it, and then it don't matter because by the time that happens, you'll get obliterated. What do you think? Pretty good? Did you see anything outside that you like? In the sky? Bunch of stars? Pay attention to your stars, they're all cool.
I didn't know there's different colors.
Yeah, the colors are really neat. If you pay attention to the colors, you can learn.
I think that's my favorite.
Which one? The heat shield? Yeah, it's a nice one. We're lucky to get that. This was given to us by a gentleman who was an instructor, a professor at Ball State University up in Indiana. And he also worked for the Jet Propulsion Lab. And the story is on this. It says, heat shield of spacecraft which started a forest fire in the National Forest, North Carolina. Nobody wants to talk to us about that. But you see, it's a spy satellite. Spy satellites don't exist. For sure. Did y'all see any satellites out there tonight?
Yes.
They're very common. If you go to our website, totalsky.org, there's a place on there that says today's visible satellites, or you can download an app on your phone and tell you what to see. Space station's real easy to see. There's a lot of them. Do yourself a favor, don't waste your time looking for Starlink satellites. Most of them are going to be way too far. We saw some right after they launched, and that was spectacular, but now they're all spread out. So that's actually the inside of one of these big ones right here when it fractured without being exposed to fire polishing or anything like that. This is your structure, crystal metal structure on the inside. You wouldn't want to get hit by any of those.
How do people find all of these?
Well, this one they saw it fall, and the Chile Advensk, they knew where it did. It actually made a hole about the size of the room, but it wasn't very big. It broke into little pieces like this. These are about the size of the pieces of that. Now, some of these made much bigger pieces. Some of the pieces right here, we've got one of our members has a piece of that that's about half the size of a bowling ball and weighs about 75 pounds. So some of them come out pretty small, some of them come out pretty big. It depends on how big they were to start with and what they were made of. Now, back in 1908, there was this thing called the Tunguska event, which was this massive something hit in Siberia again, and it blew trees down for about 100 miles, but it didn't create a crater, and they didn't find any meteorite or anything like that. So what they figured it was either a comet made up of ice and dust, or it could have been a very, very lightweight meteorite that's basically like chalk, little pieces of chalk gravel. And when it hit, it vaporized, but all the energy still continued down and created this massive eruption. This is one right here also. You see it's got a different color on it. You remember what I said tells it different color? A collision in space with another rock. These two rocks collided, they melted, and they formed that stuff. That's what I was told. I hope that's right. But, yeah, these are some nice ones. Isn't that gorgeous? It's sharp because they polished it. See that corner right there? You can put some extra. I found out the whole way to get that thing out of the box. These two actually came off the same thing, the same chan. So they had this nice metal part right here, and then it went into this right here. It's kind of unusual to have both of them together, but it's a very nice piece. This is a piece called Brenham Palisade in Kansas. Um, it's kind of the same thing, but it's hard to get any light to shine through it. It's pretty. We've got some right here. This is from Australia. Meteorites coming out of Australia are kind of hard to get because they don't let them out, but it's just iron. It's real pretty and smooth, so that means it's got fire polish. This is another Australian meteorite. This is well-known meteorite called the Henbury. Just can't go out to Walmart and buy those things anymore. Isn't that neat? That is neat because that was caused by lightning hitting the sand. Now, you have these big high tension electrical wires. If one of those wires was to fail and hit the ground, it would create the same kind of thing. I've seen that happen in our neighborhood. We had a 7,200 volt line come down and it melted the ground. I didn't think about getting it melted, but it melted the ground. These tektites were caused by a meteorite hitting the ground and melting the ground, blowing it up into the sky, and while it was still molten, it came down in these shapes. These are from Vietnam and Indonesia and China, China. Two of them down there on the end came from the crater. These are pretty cool. They're different. You can go in there and analyze what's in there. Somebody knows what they're doing. And then it's pretty, isn't it? But, I hold this one up right here. I tell people that this is the tech that came down. Oh, wait a minute. That's what my cat left. Yeah, we're very blessed to have these. Not showing them off to people. You can go home and tell your friends that you held a rock from the moon, and you can held a rock from Mars, and you held a rock from Vesta, and you held asteroids. You held Vladimir Putin's meteorite. Were you in here when I told the story on that? It's Russian state property. Vladimir Putin said he had to send it back. He ain't getting it back. Yeah, we like people to handle them. It's good people to handle them because the oils from your hand keep them from rusting. If you don't handle them, they rust. Rust on one of these. Yeah, this is starting to get some rust on it. How about that? Do you guys have a telescope at your house or binoculars or anything? Good. You can look at anything you want to except the sun. Don't ever point it toward the sun. And If you ever have any questions about using them, bring it down here and we'll check them out and make sure they're aligned and show you how to use them. That's what we do. Hello. What do you think? Got it all figured out? You know your way around the sky? Can you find a juvenile journey? It's actually out there. Yep. All right. All right. Thank you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our meteorite show. It's time to leave. Thank you for joining us tonight. This video will be available on our YouTube channel at catawbasky.org. Please visit anytime. Our next meeting will be down here on Friday, July the 15th, starting at 9 o'clock. If we can get this system to work, we will be streaming our Catawba Valley Astronomy Club meeting on Thursday, July the 14th from Catawba Science Center. That may or may not happen. Our next event coming up is Tuesday morning. I'll be on Hal Rowe's First Talk Show at 7:45 in the morning on WHKY AM 1290. So please join us for that. I just give an overview of what's happening in the sky and what's happening in the club. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a couple weeks.